So joining me now is Brett Sifling, Director of Get Invested at Gerber Kawasaki Wealth and Investment Management. Brett, thanks so much for coming on the show. What can we expect as Musk leads Twitter ahead?
I think the biggest thing that we can expect is bringing light to a process that no one really understands in regards to who's allowed on the platform, what can be said on the platform. I think that that is the number one thing, and also really changing the revenue streams. Creating a creator economy essentially, and opening up revenue sharing type projects similar to like what YouTube has. I think those are the two main things we're looking out for.
Well, Twitter will no longer be a publicly traded company. So is there any way, Brett, that investors can invest in Musk's vision for Twitter as the stock is taken off of the public market?
Well, if you do buy the stock on the open public market now, the deal goes through. Obviously, you'll get that cash out, hopefully around that 54.20 range, and ultimately that's the company taking private. So I know people were talking about price targets going forward. That obviously doesn't happen with private companies, and that's what you really just have to look forward to, is the price not moving.
Any expectation as to how users might be impacted, Brett, if Twitter will be able to keep up its daily and monthly active users with Musk at the helm?
Look, there is a ton of bots on Twitter. That's just the bottom line. And, with that, there needs to be greater accountability. And so I think that if they do bring that to the Twitter platform, obviously monthly active users and things might fall because those metrics might, have been kind of fluffed up a little bit. And so I could definitely see that as, coming down a bit.
Any indication as to how Musk will be involved with this new privately held Twitter?
Yeah, people are debating whether he's going to be running it or not. I think it's pretty clear that he is going to be the CEO of Twitter. Obviously, he's not going to be sitting there and saying, this tweet's wrong and this tweet's right, and banning people personally. We're not going to wake up on Monday after the deal is done and have a completely different platform. These things take time. And ultimately, it's going to take time for him to understand the teams within Twitter, who he wants to keep, who he might want to suggest look elsewhere. And ultimately kind of create a game plan. Look, Elon is a smart guy, and he's going to come at this with everything that he's got.
And what do we know about how he's financing this deal? Huge $44 billion deal. Of course, Musk wanted a haircut in the price as the stock market pretty much fell out of bed since he had first announced his intention to buy Twitter, and the deal is set to close months later. But what might it mean for Tesla stock, Brett, going forward? Of course, as we know, it did include share sales of Tesla in order to get this done.
Yeah, pretty sure the Tesla shares sells are pretty much out of the way at this point. And it's a combination of partnering with other equity investors as well as debt obligations from banks. And so I think around 13 billion of the debt obligations from the bank is already being funded today. Ultimately, a lot of these banks are going to be holding on to this debt for quite a while, because if they go out and try to sell it to secondary investors now in the market, they're looking at around a $500 million loss. So, everyone that is involved has a pretty big stake in it. And I think the combination between his Tesla shares, other equity investors, and the debt from banks that he's leveraging is ultimately how he got the deal done.
Okay, so we had heard at one point that Musk, upon taking over, was going to lay off 75% of staff, according to a report with information leaked from a top investor. But now Musk is kind of going back on that. So any indication, Brett, for those working at Twitter, whether or not their job might be on the line, as I'm sure Musk is going to try to monetize this platform much more and turn it into the so-called everything app. What was it, X, that he called it on Twitter, as he does lead it into the next phase?
Talking to people at Twitter, I have friends at the company. There is some unrest, obviously, about what Elon's going to be doing and if they're going to be firing anyone. But I mean, there's been so much nonsense thrown around about this in the media and just guesses that no one knows. I mean, think about that. 75% of a workforce is just insane to me. There obviously will be some restructuring. There might even be some job cuts here or there. But again, it's not going to happen overnight. He's not going to come in and just clean house. He's going to take some time, understand which teams are the most valuable and driving the value at Twitter before making a decision, especially a big one like that. Where, it does affect a lot of people's lives.
All right, Brett Sifling, Director of Get Invested at Gerber Kawasaki Wealth and Investment Management. Brett, thanks again for joining.